Right, so we give it a minute for everyone to start joining us as we've just gone live. If there's anyone in the chat, just let us know where you are watching from. That'd be great. We've got a great team here today. So yeah, we've got someone from your neck of the woods, Luke.
Oh, we have? Awesome.
Yeah, someone from Birmingham. So
howdy.
There you go, Montreal. That's it. We let the guys, let everyone fill up before we start on introducing you guys.
Birmingham is UK, not Alabama, huh?
Yeah, no, stop copying our stuff, man.
That's the proper Birmingham, right?
Yeah, the real one.
Yeah. Where Ozzy Osbourne's from.
Love it.
Absolutely. Right
then. So let's get moving in. Right. So thank you everyone for joining us from Birmingham to Canada, Colorado, and Los Angeles. And
Dubai.
Ooh, Dubai. Nice one.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'll let everyone introduce themselves. Ladies first. Liz, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, not Franco? Oh, okay. Me. Gotcha. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Moorehead. I am the Director of Web and Interactive Content at Impact, which is a digital sales and marketing company. We provide agency services for digital sales and marketing teams around the world. And I oversee our publishing division because we do a heck ton of education on digital sales and marketing, from latest news and strategy and expertise and all that. The short version is I'm a common nerd, and that is what I do. Spend a lot of time in a cave chucking words out at people. That's pretty much it.
That's it. Over to you, Luke. Since Birmingham was the first one that come up on the visitors there.
So I don't know what I do anymore. I've been in isolation too long. But apparently I'm an e-commerce guy. So I do e-commerce, CRO, SEO, UX, a bit of everything. But ultimately, I help clients improve online sales. Even now, even with what's going on in the world. And I've decided I'm going to grow out a beard because it's the best time ever. So I'm not going for a crisis. I'm just decided I want some more facial hair. But yeah, I specialize in all kind of corners of e-commerce, from the platform right out to front end. And yeah, that is me. Hi, people.
That's it. And over to you, Franco.
I love it. Does everybody in Birmingham have a beard, Luke? Is that the thing?
Yeah, even the women, man.
I love it. I love it. It's my kind of ladies.
Got to work on it.
I'm Franco Valentino. I'm the founder of Narrative SEO. We're a technical SEO firm out of Nashville, Tennessee. And right now you cannot go to a bar downtown, and that's killing everybody. So the streets are going to go mad soon. But anyway, we do e-commerce. We do a lot of technical SEO at the plumbing level, digital interconnections and scalpels and everything in between.
That's it. And I'm Paul Lovell. I'm do a little bit of that SEO type stuff. Like getting really technical with log analysis, schema, tag manager, and all the other bits and pieces in between. So who wants to go first and start looking at appliances online? AO.com, give us the permission to dig through their site. Liz?
Ladies first.
Right, you guys, I have no opinions. Just kidding. I have many. Okay. So let me go ahead and bring up the website. Give me just a second. Okay. So welcome to AO.com, where everything is important, so nothing is important. So I want to walk through a few things here, and I'm going to, just to preface this, for this website and the next one that we're going through, I'm focusing on two things. One, the actual words on the page. Are they effective? Are they appropriate calls to action? Are they going to engage people's attention? And then also, and this is the one thing I really focus on for AO.com, is the organization of the content. One thing before I get sad, I will say, is I love the excellent offers pun. Well done. I'm always down for a good pun. But overall, my challenge for this website isn't necessarily the content itself, but rather how it's laid out. Because as a consumer, I feel as if I'm sifting through a lot of noise in order to get what I want. It's almost as if just scrolling through it, I feel like I'm looking at one of those, store inserts that I get in a newspaper, or like a catalog come to life, not as if it was really built for me to be able to find things easily. At a high level, just visually with the content, there isn't a lot of good hierarchy or differentiation. If you look at everything, a lot of the font sizes are the same boldness, but when I look at the mega menu here, it almost faded into the background. I actually scrolled a little bit at first to find it before I actually noticed, oh, there it is at the top where it's supposed to be. What I'd love to see also here is some more ability to self-select and figure out where it is that I want to go before I start getting hit in the face with every single deal, every single coupon, every single sale that you guys have going on right now. A great way, for example, to maybe implement some more consumer or buyer focused copy would be at the top, I am looking for, or I need help with. And I think the I need help with type of content or type of positioning would be very helpful in this help and advice section, because if I'm a consumer and I'm going out there, the thing I'm thinking is, I need a dishwasher. There are thousands of dishwashers on the market, and I'm not then going to then sift here and say, I'm just going to look for arbitrary buying guides and then sift through that as well. You don't want the helpful material to be as cumbersome as trying to figure out what it is that you want to buy as well. So maybe a little bit more sorting, like, are they pricing guides? Are they comparison guides? Are they, best of lists? Make it a little bit more contextualized for me as the user, so I understand what exactly I'm getting into in that section. Another thing that really jumped out at me at the bottom that just screamed to me, like, did anybody really think about the user or the buyer in this, is this representative example section. I don't remember who told me this a long time ago, but whether you're coming to the thinking about the organization of your website, or more specifically the copy and how you're presenting information, the number one golden rule is you do not want to make your user think. So when I look at this representative example section, my first instinct as a user is, representative example of what? There is no context here, and it takes me between 15 and 30 seconds to be like, oh, okay, so I'm looking at, so we're talking about financing here, but I don't really still understand what it is that I'm looking at. So again, it's taking a step back and thinking about, did you build this website to just have a virtual catalog where everything was on here? Or did you really think about the buyer and the journey that they're going through in order to find what it is that they're looking for, find it easily? Okay, we're talking about financing. This could have been a much more exciting section where you speak to the pain points of, you want that new refrigerator, but how are you going to pay for it? Let's make that something that's a little less scary for you. Because this reminds me of when I looked at stuff for like signing a mortgage on a house. It's not exciting. It's scary. It makes me less likely to buy or engage. And plus, there's no call to action here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this information. One thing I did like that I want to show very quickly is when I was looking through some of the deeper product pages, leaving aside the fact that there needs to be some serious editorial cleanup on some of these little subheadings and things like that, I liked that you guys had self-selection. Self-selection is something I think that takes things like consumer electronics, consumer goods, appliances, and things like that, and makes them accessible, makes it easy for me to immediately and very quickly sift through and push away all the things that I don't want. But I don't find something like that until I get down here. If there's a way to bring that experience at a broader, more generalized level, even if it's as simple as I'm looking for a TV, a new refrigerator, my laundry exploded and there's soap everywhere, I probably need a new one. Anything like that. I'm sad that experience is buried there. But those are my initial thoughts on the copy and content. Again, my overall takeaway from this, and this I think goes for any e-commerce site, you don't want to just lift the experience of a catalog or a sales insert in a newspaper and just replicate it on your website. it doesn't work that way. You just end up with people who are more confused and less likely to buy, because the more friction you create in the process where either your copy or your content organization makes it difficult for me to find what I'm looking for, I'm going to abandon and go elsewhere. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Right, that was good.
That
Yeah, so structure and emotion, yeah? Right, there we go. That's very good. Right, so I know Franco's got a lot of good stuff because we've spoke a few times. So I'll let Luke share what information he has on as well.
All right, awesome. So share screen. Let's make this happen. Application window. I want to talk about this for a minute. Y'all should be able to see my screen in just a second. AO.com. This is AO.com, or at least this was AO.com many years ago, back in 2003 to be specific. And this kind of talks about the bowels of AO and why it had so many issues in the previous days. So you can see plain text, Gospel of Tux Unearthed. Wow. Now, I'm pretty sure you don't have to be a white goods wizard to work out that that doesn't exist on AO.com, right? So there's clearly a situation that's happened where whatever AO.com was before, which looks like something to do with potentially, I mean, I thought it was religion at first, I'm not going to lie. And then I started seeing things like MS-DOS and Windows. So whether this is kind of like a really weird technology cult that I've never heard of before. But my point here is there's still a lot of this content and backlink profile lurking around. So to use this very specific example here, we can see some broken backlinks. I won't get into too much of this because there's plenty of other guys, Franco, I'm sure, and Paul, that you want to go into this. But just talking about some of the issues here, where you've got backlinks from, at a glance, fairly high authority sites that are just pointing to some really weird pages. Now, these, of course, aren't really going to benefit the new or modern AO.com because it's completely different in terms of topic. But this must be an absolute pain in the ass for AO.com at the moment, and it needs to be taken a look at of. But I also found something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more on topic, which is a URL that doesn't work. So this is the same URL that we saw from AO.com before, but I saw, and I think I've got it in a tab open somewhere. It's gone. But what it was the old appliancesonline.com /appliances.htm. See if I can find it. Appliances online. It's going to do me like that. It's not even in my history. Okay. But long story short, there was a URL in here that was the bowels of what AO.com stands for in its current iteration, which is appliances. So seeing that particular backlink is broken kind of makes me feel that there's clearly something else that is going on here, because as we know, and as many people in the world of SEO know, when Appliances Online moved across to AO.com, there was a slump in organic performance, that the migration didn't go very well. And even now, you know, it's never been at the levels it used to be. And that would be certainly a couple of the places that I'd absolutely go and take a look at. But taking a little bit more about what's happening on the site and less about the history of this domain, I want to talk about some of this mega menu here. So for one, it's complicated. There's a lot going on. It almost feels like a directory, you know, kind of finding it difficult to find out where to go. But from an SEO point of view, all of these URLs contain mmref, which is like a parameter. And I am sure that that's going to be a parameter for like mega menu reference that they use to monitor performance and engagement on mega menu clicks. But what's really irritating here is all these URLs are indexable. So that seems a little bit weird, because then you've got duplicate URLs going on. The better way to do this, providing they're using something like Google Analytics, it looks like they might be using Adobe, but let's look at this holistically for a second. If they are using Google Analytics, then what I'd absolutely recommend here is using events for these clicks instead of URLs. The benefit in doing that is when a user comes to click on one of these items, then you can track that event in GA. Equally, if I was to copy and paste this URL, it's not going to artificially flag it as a mega menu click, which is exactly what would happen if I clicked best game in desktop, copied the URL, sent it to a friend, or shared it on social. You're then going to get a huge spike in mega menu engagement, even though it's purely artificial. Another issue here is, as I said, there's a lot of links going on here. All of these links are follow. They're not restricted in any capacity. So there's probably hundreds if not probably running into to several hundreds, if not low thousands of links in here. And all of these are going to be diluting the equity that the website has. Now, AO.com is not a small site. There's a lot of equity for it to play with, but there's better ways to distribute equity to the important areas of the website. And I'm pretty sure not all of these URLs are going to be super important and are deserving of equity passing to them from every page on the website. So that's certainly something to look into. And this is like a general rule, right? This isn't just for AO.com. This is in general, which is if you have a mega menu in e-commerce, which is, you know, quite a popular thing. First of all, consider design. But second of all, think about what URLs you consider priority for SEO. Which ones do you want to pass equity and which ones are you not so bothered about? You may find, for example, that this one here, this kind of bezel-based offer from Samsung is a really good promotion, but it's not really going to do anything for you from an SEO perspective. If that's the case, then add rel equals no follow and prevent the equity from passing to places it doesn't need to happen. Take a look at a few other things. So, here we go. I found my URL. So let me just fire this up in the browser a second. So the old URL is appliancesonline.co.uk/appliances.htm. Now I'm pretty sure appliances online, it's in the name. Appliances are the bread and butter of what AO.com do. To have this particular URL not work and then 404, something's not right here. So that's certainly something else that needs to be looked at from an SEO point of view from the off. But I found something really quite unusual, just taking a look at something. So pagination, this is something that a lot of, I see it a lot in the world for e-commerce sites for sure, is just how websites manage pagination from an SEO point of view, from a UX point of view, from many different perspectives. But I want to show you something real quick. And if I just grab the URL, let's have a look. Let's take a look at this page here. And I scroll down and I'm going to go across to say page 3. So what's weird is, first of all, page 24. I don't even know what that's about, whether it's kind of like it's trying to reference the page before and after, so 2 and 4. I don't know, but that seems a bit weird, but not necessarily broken. But if I run into the page source real quick and I fire up canonical, we can see that the canonical URL for that paginated page is referencing the pagination-free parameter URL. Let me say that again. So it's referencing the URL without the pagination, which means for AO.com, Google and other major search engines are going to find it a challenge to go away and index products that are deeper in the page, which is a real problem, because the last thing you want is to be in a situation where products on page 2 and onwards aren't receiving any equity, because items on page 2 may be really important. They may be worthwhile. And I'm pretty sure with as many products as AO.com have, there's going to be products that they need to take care of in this particular space. So that's something that I'll probably look at almost immediately. And I'm always the kind of guy who rants about user experience when it comes to products you no longer sell. So I just want to bring up an example here. In Wayback Machine, the page is a bit weird. It doesn't render very well, so I can't show you particularly too much. But what I will say is this is for a Morphy Richards kettle, nothing particularly important. But you've got to think, since the year of 2000 and let's say 15, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of products that AO.com no longer sell. And what it looks like AO.com do is 410 or 410 the old product pages. Now, these product pages absolutely have equity. They absolutely have equity. So rather than 410, which of course the equity is dead, it's not passed along. Why not show user experience which says, hey, this Morphy Richards kettle is no longer available. Why don't you browse these other Morphy Richards kettles that we have in a similar price range or a similar color or a similar spec? That would really make a difference, and it would allow you to preserve some of that equity at the same time. So yeah, there are a couple of things. There's loads I can go on, but time is precious, and I want someone else to do some talking.
Yeah. So, well, what I'll do is I'll jump in and I'll pick up on that exact point that you just made of the 410 pages, because that's what I found as well. So let me share my screen, and
good man.
You'll see what I'm looking at, because that ties in perfectly with what I found. So there we go. Right. So again, yeah, like you're saying, lots of 410 pages now. I do something called the everything rule. Obviously, I didn't have access to Search Console or Analytics, So I go into the Wayback Machine via a Google Sheet, and I pull out everything that's a 200 status code and everything that's been classed ever as a 404 code. And then I go to Semrush and I pull out all of the pages there. These pages here have been picked up and were indexed and were crawled by Semrush or Wayback Machine at some point. Now, yeah, I've got 2 of them here, which are really good examples of what you were meaning about passing equity. So you've got this page here. Now, when we look at the backlink history for it, we've got a link from Games Radar going straight to that page, which is an authority score in Semrush of 71. So straight away they've just cut that link, and yeah, we don't need nothing from that domain name, none of that backlink strength at all. And obviously you've got a couple of other strong ones there underneath as well, like T3, for example. So there's a handful of good domains, and that's where they should be checking their pages before they 410 and then making a decision on whether they should 410 them or 301 them to either the top level category for that product or to the new product. And that will help obviously with those pages getting indexed slightly higher. And again, it's the same with this one here as well. So again, it's a 410, it's been picked up, it was indexed once. That's how I found it. And again, you've got a link from london.ac. .uk. So again, exactly what you were saying, Luke, where they're not taking advantage of the link equity that they've gathered over time. They're 410ing them, so they're telling Google that page is permanently gone. So I'm not even too sure, even if they tried to 301 it, if it'd actually do anything anymore, because Google's pretty much not going to come back to that page realistically again, unless they're really lucky. It's
a tricky one. I've certainly come across a situation before, and I think normally to help clients out in this situation is you kind of create almost like a temporary XML sitemap, which is you might just have a discontinued sitemap, and in doing that, you kind of encourage Google to go and first of all go and crawl those items that are no longer available, so it can almost undo the 410 and start to jiggle some of that equity around. But it's not always successful. Sometimes Google's just stubborn. It's like, dude, you told me it's gone, I'm not going to come back and check that out. But it's worth a shot. If you've got a bunch of a couple thousand URLs you could throw around, build a sitemap, submit it via Google Search Console, and see what happens. It might help you out.
Yeah, they were the 2 best ones that I found where they were certainly losing some equity. That they could pull back into that site and steer and page sculpt where it needs to go. But yeah, over to Franco. I know Franco's got a lot of good stuff to share. He's been sharing some technical stuff with me.
I love the way that Luke put it, is jiggle the equity around on the 404s. That's awesome. That's exactly the right framework. But that's typical. What you said, Luke, is actually typical in e-commerce, right? The products live and die, and when they die, they should go to another re-index page to say, hey, user, this is gone, but let's actually send you to the right place, and click here. So let me share screen. We're gonna let me crack my knuckles a little bit first. All right. Let me share this. I'm actually going to start sharing just some notes real quick. So we typically start with a view of the framework that the website is built on. So in AO's case, they're Adobe Enterprise Cloud, and they're using IIS basically for the server. The website's built in active server pages, Microsoft technology. So that's all fine and well. It's a standard e-commerce platform, and it's got its own ways of applying things like security and speed and headers and things like that. So I'll be kind to them at first and say, look, you guys are doing a lot of things that are right. You have a content delivery network. You've laid Cloudflare on top of the website, which helps distribute the pages globally, concatenates, minifies JavaScript on the caching side. We're going to talk a lot more about that later. They're using modern image formats. So WebP, it's a lot smaller, faster, lighter, renders well in the browsers. They are enforcing HSTS. So no page is not secure on the website. We know it's a known rank factor for security. Another huge, and I was really pleased to see this, they turned on Brotli compression within Cloudflare. Typically, the protocol that encrypts files, the protocol that compresses files between the server and the user's browsers, is gzip compression. It's a standard protocol, been around for more than 30 years. Brotli's a newer one. It's about 30% faster. So they're getting a really good speed boost just by having Brotli enabled on the server. The images are lazy loading. So when you get that first view of the website, all the images that are below that don't load until the user scrolls them into view. Again, standard practice, and actually most modern browsers are starting to implement that natively, which they should have done a long time ago, but it's there. Now, the first thing that sort of piqued my interest was that we didn't see any we saw microdata on the homepage. We didn't see any schema. I didn't see JSON LD. And I'll let Paul talk about that a little bit more. But this is a really, really, really big opportunity for them, because schema, if you're familiar with it, is a way of wrapping rich metadata around your website and having search engines or Google distribute the website in new SERP features. So especially in e-commerce, product schema is really important. Service schema, reviews, all of those things that we know to be rich data within Google. So in digging a little bit more into that, they actually have breadcrumbs. If you look at the freestanding washing machines page, it has schema loaded on it, but the breadcrumb list is erroring out from the navigation standpoint. When something errors out in schema, Google doesn't pick it up at all. So warnings are okay, but errors are not. So that and what's specifically erroring out is the actual URL field. So that needs to be in there for it to be picked up. So that kind of led down a path as well. If we go to the About page, there's no schema on the About page. From an EAT standpoint, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, that's a really big opportunity to help improve the knowledge panel, to send to Luke's point, those old backlinks, right? The actual schema can help filter and make the entity profile strength stronger by building an entire organizational schema profile behind it. So we felt that was important as well. On an individual product page, we also saw some invalid attributes for the ratings. So the review stars, for example, on the My Time washing machine white 37193 isn't firing. Again, it's erroring out. So again, massive opportunity on the schema side. One other thing, when we look at the jQuery versions that are loaded by the framework, so the CMS may bring in a lot of external processes or JavaScript files to do sliders and visual design elements. The version that they have running is 1.10. The current release is 3.4.1. This is a big security vulnerability. So it's a little bit harder to fix because you have to either update the CMS or update the server and find out where jQuery UI 1.10 is, and then update it to 3.41. So kind of important on that front as well. All right, so I'm going to let Paul talk a little bit about here, but another thing we did is because of the jQuery issue, this sort of flagged to test with disabling jQuery or JavaScript on the website. When you go to this particular product, if you disable JavaScript, the image rotator, the slider, completely disappears. All right, so why is that a problem? Google runs, when Googlebot comes into a website, it runs two passes. It goes through and sucks out the HTML and the CSS first to understand all the content on the page. It doesn't do JavaScript at first. If it has enough cycles, it'll then render the JavaScript. In this case, we're opening a hole. If Google has tens of thousands of pages to crawl, it may not pick these up and then therefore not pick up the alt tags, which are super important for image search. So that's one thing. That's happening also on the page itself. So if for example, the key information and the product specifications are loaded with a JavaScript call. So if you do a pre-render on the site, you don't see that on the mobile view. The site is mobile first index. Googlebot smartphone is the one that comes in first. So a lot of that rich data, the actual content on the page, you may be stopping it. So one thing that we did when we looked at this was we looked at Currys, which is their big competitor. Currys is a straight HTML site. Everything is on the page. The keyword densities within Semrush are roughly 120,000 for AO. Currys is at almost 500,000. So this is an area to look at anyway on where you can improve the JavaScript crawl and potentially send more actual textual data to Google on the first pass would help. Paul, I'm going to take a drink of water if you want to talk about this one just a little bit.
Yeah. So the slide that Franco's showing there is the mobile view, and it is missing out a lot of the specification information. And as we know, if you're on mobile index first, it's going to crawl your site on mobile, and it's going to rank you according to that content. So if you've got content that's not shown on mobile, it's certainly going to hurt you. You want, I mean, and that's why there's like responsive websites now, because everything shows on every version. So it's one of those things. If you've got content and you've took that time to gather that content, why only give it to someone on desktop when we all know that most of the initial sort of product search before someone actually literally clicks the buy button and pays with their card is done on mobile. That research phase of e-commerce search is normally done by mobile first. So you want to make sure that everything's fully visible.
Right. And there's a fetch and render tool. If you just Google fetch and render, you can actually test just like Googlebot tests by plugging in what the user agent is. So this is the Googlebot smartphone user agent. Seed it with your URL, respect robots, and then you'll actually get the output of how Googlebot sees that particular page, which is if you match it up between your desktop and what you see in the render tool, you'll see that a lot of the page content is not there initially. So again, opportunity. From a speed perspective, we got a lot more to go. So I want to talk about the other response codes that we're going to get to in a second. This is webpagetest.org. They're doing a lot of things right. Like we mentioned, the server's good. They got Cloudflare on top. The first byte times are well underneath a second from the first bit of information. That's a correlated entry to a first page ranking in Google. So things are good from the speed perspective. The F that we're seeing here is just expires headers in the browser. Just tell the user's browser to save a JPEG for 30 days, things like that. So it flags it a little bit, but it's okay to ignore those because there's a lot more important data here. Now, if we do the Lighthouse crawl, there's a lot of unused US CSS. There's about 2 seconds worth according to Lighthouse. So the performance score is sitting at about a 44. If somehow they can get it to a 70 by cleaning up potentially JavaScript, because they have a lot of requests to JavaScript, the more modern scripts, jQuery 3.2 is a lot, or 3.4 is a lot faster than 1.10. So just code level improvements, I think would help a lot. The sitemap was in really good shape. They are publishing the last modification date, which for the QDF rank factor, that helps a little bit. Query deserves freshness. So there's no structural issues here. They're calling them out. They did have 93,900 pages indexed in Google's cache. From the server guys, they should probably take a look at the total number of URLs and match those up to see if Google is excluding a lot of those. So that's kind of where you start first to see if, to Luke's point, if the 404s are just getting destroyed and there's some value behind them, then you want to figure out how to get those indexed again. All right, let's get into the response codes because there's a lot of meat in here. So this is a massive site. So I stopped the crawl at about 46%, but even so, at 46%, there were 2,200 pages at 46% that did not have an H1 on them. We know that the H1 is a really important, it's a hint. First of all, it's not necessarily a signal, but it's the most important HTML code on the page, which can signal what this product is. In e-commerce, it's typically the name of the product or the model number, which helps it rank on SERP. So an audit of the H1s would be a really, really good thing for them to do. All right, let's get to the 500s. So this is a critical error. When Googlebot runs through a website and it sees a 500, that's a server. It means the server's gone. It's not there, so it leaves, right? It hits a firewall, essentially. Now, if we take and look at a specific one of these pages that the tools are saying are a 500 error, we can go to that specific page, and this is the page that's saying it has a 500, a link to it on the 500. If we go to the portable speakers page and we click on this, we get a page not found, except the internal code that it's spitting out is a 500. This really should be a 404, right? And should be redirected. A 500 is a really, really strong signal to the crawler to leave the site. So just by cleaning those up, the crawler can stay and actually make more sense of the site and get more pages indexed. So, Paul, I'll let you talk a little bit about it.
So in all the log analysis that I've done over the years, as soon as Google hits a 500 error, especially the amount that obviously we see within that crawl that was taking place there, the Googlebot's just going to back off. And I can guarantee you that if AO.com look at their log files and do some proper analysis, they will find that their crawl rate has dropped directly when that issue started.
Yep.
And I can lay absolute money on that. And that's going to hinder them from getting indexed, because every time it goes to crawl that, is it the help and advice section? It's just going to be picking up more of those 500s, and there's quite a few in there.
I love this. So this is kind of just to jump in real quick, Franco, on this bit, and Paul, before on this specific point. So there's something that I love to do for clients in GA on this case, and it's just pushing a little data layer.push event whenever you hit a 404, a 410, or a 500. Right. So even if, because your log files are perfect and they're great and they'll give you the context, but to kind of build a business case, if you can justify how many people in a given space of time have bumped into that issue, and then maybe align that with abandoned baskets, you then have a business case immediately to say, hey, this is costing us X thousands of pounds a week, a month, a quarter. All of a sudden it gets reprioritized and put to the top of the queue. Because you can guarantee, I mean, you know, there's agencies and there's a lot of people taking care of this domain. This won't be necessarily new to them, but what they may not be aware of is just how much of an impact or just how many people are seeing this. Right. So building a report in GA to allow them to see all of this good stuff in a very quick report, number of users, number of hits, number of transactions this impacts, that can be a really big way of helping you to kind of say, hey, look, this is a big deal. Let's get this fixed. Yeah,
that's a great point. They're also, we peeked in, they're using Telium as their tracking versus GTM. Okay. They have GTM, but like you said, set up those alerts, and at an estimated 2 million visitor a month, they'll have some statistically significant data really quickly.
Yeah,
so that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
All right.
Usually what I get clients to do when they start to see issues like this is if they're on AWS, they can or pretty much any server, they can plug into Datadog. Datadog, you can set an alert up with, and then that'll actually ping the development team and the people that need to know that there's been a 500 error literally seconds after one actually gets requested, because it's coming from the live. It's coming from the live feed straight from the server.
Yeah, great point. That's it. Yeah, just measuring and tracking is super important on e-commerce. Ran it through a couple other tools as well. GT Metrics was flagging, sort of the standard stuff, and any SEO agency will know what to tackle, and they may be in different areas because there's a lot of code on that website. We already talked about the JavaScript, but on the origin server, meaning the non-Cloudflare side, they still have some minification issues. This is sort of compression for JavaScript and CSS, URL redirects, cookie-free domains. There's a lot of response codes, and as a matter of fact, we want to talk about that because the response code map is massive. There's a lot of third-party socket connections, like TCP behind the scenes, that are bringing in response codes and pixels and Facebook and trackers and things like that. One of them was My NanoRep. That was sort of the biggest. These two blue bubbles over here. If they can take a majority of these, if you sort of Pareto it and look at the 80-20 of it, the ones with the most number of pull requests, move those into Telium so it's offset from the header of the website, for example. That'll help slow down the processing on the back end, and potentially help with speed as well. So that is it for AO on my side anyway.
That's good, because I was just about to start pushing you to say we need to get another website in. AO is a very big site. And I mean, in the UK, certainly the SEOs know that there's a lot of history there. So hopefully AO will find some good information there. And I
think we just filled their roadmap for 2020, to be honest.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah. 40 minutes is really not enough to go through that. So yeah.
So obviously we've got some questions, and then we jump into the next website. So we've got one. Obviously, everyone is a bit concerned about the situation going on in the world at the moment around COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever term you want to use. I know myself and Franco, we work on some joint clients together, and they're doing very well. I'm just putting a conversation out there. Is anyone else seeing ups, downs in the e-commerce industry that will sort of like help share with what people are asking regards to thinking and spending today? So can it affect anything, etc., etc. Yeah. So just to pick up on some of those.
I think one thing I identified early on, before it really properly blew up and government started throwing in lockdowns and all sorts of stuff, was there's a lot of pharma companies and healthcare companies that are naturally kind of almost like a first port of call for any coronavirus specific supplies. I won't name them here, but there is a blog post that I've written which you can check out on the site. But ultimately, they're two really big brands on the high street in the UK and online. When you search for internally on their sites for the query coronavirus, there's no results found. And I just think it's a little bit ironic if you think, to have a healthcare provider that sells coronavirus supplies, so hand sanitizer, cleansing wipes, pain relief, nothing that's going to cure it, but things that will maybe help alleviate the symptoms or help you fight the spread of the infection. And they could be missing out on a really big opportunity, not just for sales. Sales is great, but I mean more about customer loyalty, being that kind of one-step resource for kind of coronavirus content. But equally, there are some brands that are really taking advantage of it right now. I think it's all about changing the way things are happening. So, for example, if you're like someone who relies on face-to-face business, you're a childcare person, for example, or a nanny, then what I know for sure at the moment is that potty training is screaming in terms of demand, because everyone's at home. A lot of people have toddlers. Now is the best time in the world to do it. So are you in a situation where you were in a healthcare brand, you might be able to go and get in some, I don't know, some potties, for example, or maybe like supplies or all sorts of stuff. There's content opportunities there, which I'm sure Liz can talk about in more detail. There's loads of stuff. My point here is, just because you have a brick wall at the moment, because it's stopped playing your day-to-day, doesn't mean a quick pivot and a quick change in what you do day-to-day couldn't bring the money back in or bring the traffic or keep the attention of your users. It's really important.
Yeah, I completely agree on the content piece of it. That's kind of a little bit shocking to me, what you were telling me about, or telling everyone about these folks not ranking anywhere for that. I mean, the fundamental goal of any content strategy is just to answer the questions that your ideal buyers or audience has. And I can't think of a time when your audience or ideal buyer, no matter who you are, has more questions than they do right now. I think sometimes there is this paralysis that can occur. People are very nervous to talk about particular topics. They may not want to get involved. They may not know what to say. Really just start thinking about your ideal buyers. Ask them, what are their biggest concerns? And then just start writing content or creating videos or doing anything. To not have a voice in this discussion right now, I think it's a critical mistake.
That's it. That's great. And I know there's one question that says about companies that are shutting down. Let me just find that question. Sarah asks, hate to mention the C word so early on, but some sites have closed for orders as a result of COVID-19. There you go. Thank you, Semrush. Any good examples of how this has been done? I've seen some bad ones, and I know I have myself. I know, for example, Next.com literally just took everything off their homepage and put a big red banner, pretty much saying the shop's shut and they're not doing no online orders. So any internal linking that was going from the homepage has just been destroyed by putting that red banner. But I don't know if you guys have seen anything, the good, the bad, and the ugly quickly before we go on to the next site.
Yeah, I think just to kind of really quickly jump in here, I've seen a number of blog posts about it, and I'm a little bit sort of flabbergasted that people feel they can almost close the shutters online and kind of say, "Hey, coronavirus is the thing. I don't have a website anymore." Like, people still want to browse. People are still creating their favorites lists. People are still, you've got to think, people are spending so much time at home. Now, just because they're not necessarily spending the cash doesn't mean they're not browsing. I think I've spent probably more time on eBay this month just looking at things I want to buy eventually than I ever have done. So there's business to be done. It's just later on. So why are you removing that experience from the user? Sure, turn off the checkout if you have to, or allow them to place the orders, but give them a warning that it might be a 4, 8, 12-week delay. Or maybe even be in a situation where if you're an e-commerce facility that charges on dispatch, you're not going to charge until the order's out the door anyway. So if you shut down your operation, then hey, take that provisional payment, give the guys the order confirmation, extend your returns window. Don't just switch everything off because things aren't necessarily in your favor right now. Because if you don't play ball, then there's plenty of people that will. And Next is a perfect example, Paul, in that case.
I've actually seen a couple of businesses around here and back where I used to live in Maryland, where they may not necessarily be fulfilling orders right now, but one of the things they are encouraging people to do is to buy gift cards to use later once they are actually back in operation, which I think is another great opportunity, because I know one of the things that I've just seen socially is people pushing others, like, if you have the ability to do so, buy a gift card for business to use later. Also, I will say you have a lot more restraint than I do, because Old Navy has definitely continued to take my money online. The sweaters haunt me thanks to their little retargeting ads that follow me everywhere. But yeah, I'm the most well-dressed quarantined person. No one will ever know.
Brilliant.
Right, so let's jump into the next site. Is it what's the name again, Franco?
Trifecta Nutrition.
There we go. So jump into that and we'll see if we've got some time at the end for some questions. So we have to make this one a little bit quick.
I'm one of their before case studies, but I haven't hit the after yet. I model for them.
Liz, I'll let you take the screen.
I've got a few thoughts. All right. So let me go ahead and bring up this razzle dazzle website. All right. So eat like you train. If I did that, like I was telling the gentleman earlier, I would just be a big bowl of Cap'n Crunch cereal, but that's fine. Neither here nor there. So here's what I want to say first. What I do like about this website as opposed to AO is that they clearly made a concerted effort to target their audience and their goals with their copy. They're focused on their goals and their needs first, as opposed to leading with something I see a lot on different e-commerce websites, which is look at this great thing we have, look at this great thing we do. So eat like you train. I really like that kind of bold in your face statement. Overall, one thing I do want to note, and this is something I've seen a lot. I promise you, I'm not the only person who notices stuff like this, but there's just a lot of editorial inconsistency here. Like, why are certain words capitalized and other words not? Also, world class is hyphenated because it's a modifier, but that's fine. But there's like a lot of stuff here where I just wish they had like a quick copy editor run through this, because those are the types of little things that it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it erodes your credibility overall. You've got to make sure that your content has a style guide, which means like, these are the rules. The commas go here. This is capitalized. This isn't. Again, it seems like it isn't a big deal, but when someone like me or anybody else who is like a version of me that likes to like do stuff comes to this website, it's something that's going to jump out at them. It was one of the first things that I noticed. Like, for example, science-backed is hyphenated here. It is not hyphenated here. But why? So that is a very nitpicky thing. So let's dive into some of the other stuff I have here. I like how they have things laid out. I like that they have the legitimizer right here. I like that they actually use video. The one opportunity, though, that I really think that is missed here is that they don't really spend a lot of time differentiating themselves from their competitors. You know, they say there's one thing, there's like, finally take control of your diet with a science-backed meal plan. Is that something your competitors are not doing? Is this a place where you actually differentiate yourself? Is this the reason why you got up one morning and said, we have to do Trifecta Nutrition because nobody else is doing this, or we can do it better than anybody else? There is no differentiation here that creates the urgency of why you over somebody else, at least in my mind. The other thing I want to note here is that I like how you have the information laid out, but there's just a lot of stuff here where I could literally just spend so much time just going through this page, and there's just so much to do. I wish it was a little bit more well organized. I wish it was broken out, because when you get up here into the menu, there's nothing except for the articles section that really allows me to do any sort of self-selection in terms of learning more. I have to commit to read one single page, which is a lot. I do like that you have the video here, but again, I think there could be more video. I would love to see a video maybe here in the hero where you could create a really compelling case around your value proposition, what the real problems are that Trifecta Nutrition solves better than anybody else. And also, it humanizes your brand too. I mean, video builds trust faster than any other type of medium on the internet. And right now, the only human being I really see initially is Liz Connolly, who I appreciate because I'm also a Liz, and Liz's are fantastic. But I don't know who she is. I have no context to who this Liz Connolly person is. So I think a video up here could really solve for that. That would be nicely and seamlessly blended into what you have here with your eat like you train mantra. Now, one thing I also do like here is that you have a learning center. I think it could be something more creatively labeled here other than articles. Articles is physically what they are, but from a value perspective, this is self-guided education. This is a nutrition learning center. You have some really great topics here. I like how things are laid out. It's bright, it's colorful, but the thing to keep in mind though is that because of the way you have things styled, a lot of these headlines don't shrink well. So the 12 best what? Like, I don't know what that is. I will say that there are some opportunities here to have content created around problems. So like, what are the problems getting started with the meal plan? What are the problems with X diet, Y diet? You know, any type of problem that has to do with fitness, nutrition, dieting, eating, all of these things. When I think about when I'm making a purchasing decision, I want to know what the problem with something is before I try it, because I don't want to have any sort of buyer's remorse, whether that's literally around a product or figuratively around a like, oh God, what have I done? Why have I done this diet? I think reviews could also be really helpful here. And I want you to think a little bit more outside of the box, not just reviews about like your own product, but you are operating in the health, fitness, and wellness space. The number of products, programs, diets, shakes, recipes, like all of these different things, you should become the go-to resource for reviews on any of those types of things. There is a great opportunity here for you to just extend beyond people who create great meal plans and share those. Trying to think if I have anything else here. Again, this is just what is fascinating to me about Trifecta is that I think, again, you did a great job really leading with the goals of the user. There's just a lot going on, and there's some organizational shortfalls and editorial shortfalls that do leave a little bit to be desired. But I think you guys have an opportunity to really step up your game here. Bring your people forward beyond these before and after. Like the fact, like if you could get video testimonials, if you could have someone, you know, like Michelle or Allie or anyone get on video and talk about their journey. Not just let me tell you about the product, but let me tell you about why I woke up one morning, looked in the mirror and said, this is the day I'm going to make a change. Then talk about how you became a part of that journey and how you helped them become that after photo. Again, that's a way to humanize the brand, bring more of those stories forward, because right now the human element is only expressed by our pal Liz Connolly over here and some static before and after pictures and people who I will likely never look like in my entire life, but that's okay. So those are my thoughts on the content. I'm going to pass it over to you, gentlemen.
That's absolutely great. Yeah. And with this type of product, you do definitely need to personalize it and get that personal information in there. So, yeah, we'll go to Luke again.
So I'll
push a little bit on time. We're getting towards the top of the hour now.
No problem. So let me just flip my screen sharing on. Okay. So content thing, I kind of want to start on that and then maybe extend into some of the things I don't like, but I guess I'm fully in agreement with what Liz is talking about in regards to content. I think purely from a lead gen perspective, there's nowhere near enough stuff on here. So if you've got to think that in a website like this, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's content driven, your homepage, yes, okay, it probably gets the most amount of people, but every single page is a landing page. So if I'm going to be searching for food right now, which again, everyone's locked indoors, food is going to be a big deal. How is this blog going to benefit Trifecta and equally benefit their audience? So this is great. This might be, I haven't read it, but this could be some really solid advice about, you know, the best vegetables to eat, what's best for nutrition, but how does this relate back to their product? What particular subscription would allow me to leverage this particular diet? That they may have a vegetarian specific subscription I can go and check out. Or they could be in a situation where they've got loads of really cool information here, and I see this here, but it's kind of hidden, where I can throw in an email address, I can get some resources, I can get some information and almost start the process for the buy-in into the brand. You know, so if they want to share with me some more recipes in this story, if they want to kind of give me a cliche discount code or some more information I can go and check out that sits around vegetarian nutrition, that also doubles down into Trifecta, then perfect. That's allowing me to kind of invest in the brand before I spend any money. But purely on the way of kind of e-commerce, CRO and UX and stuff, I really don't like this search, because this could be my subjective bias. But when I search for things here, I want to see product, and I can't seem to get to product, it's content. So that leads me to my next point, which I feel that this website is confused in the sense of, is it e-commerce which of course it is technically, but it doesn't feel like an e-commerce site. It feels like a resource. It feels like a blog, I guess, more than it does e-commerce. And I think I can see what they're trying to do. I think it just needs more separation between what is content and what is the user experience. You just go away and buy your subscription and take care of that. How much does this cost is my first question. And I have to scroll a heck of a lot away to find out what that information is. And I just feel if this was a proper e-commerce site, then those questions will be answered far sooner. So that's the kind of things that I guess is slightly jarring for me, really. But with 5 minutes to spare, I'm going to hand over the keys. Who's next, James?
Luke, to your point, it's actually, so the challenge with Trifecta is it's a dual install. It's HubSpot COS on the front side, and it's actually WordPress on the subdomain, which shop.trifecta. So we have first of all, we have a hop. So all of the backlinks that are pointing at Trifecta sort of get murky moving over to the shop, and vice versa. So let me share screen here, and I'll try to fit all this in within the time allotted. So if we're looking at a la carte, so you click on a la carte, and then you have a decent page. If you go to order now, it takes you over to the shop WordPress checkout side. Okay. All right. So now here's a challenge. If you look at the amount, first of all, any e-commerce shop should have a decent level of schema on here. So while they have some schema, we have website and web page. We're not seeing any product schema, which is really, 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 really important, right? So schema's opportunity. When I actually click on the item, it'll actually pop up in a window, which again, it should go to a product page now because it's another really, really strong signal to put in, the titles, meta descriptions, headers, and everything that goes along with the product to rank it by itself. So that's getting confused between the front side of the website, the content side, which is HubSpot, and the WordPress side. All right, from a structural perspective, again, I don't have a lot of time here, but there's two things. The HubSpot COS is fine. It's got typical. It's a good server, right? First view, second view is faster than the first view on the cache side. If we hit the WordPress side, they need a database optimization immediately on the server. The cache view, the repeat view, is 5 seconds slower than the initial load, which means the origin server is faster than what they're doing on caching. Also, the first byte times are way too fast. They should be sub half a second. All right, so less than a second initially for mobile and half a second for desktop, and the total document complete time is 14 seconds. So one of the things, and so here's what they need to do: optimize the WordPress database, because their first connection time is probably, because database gets out of sync on the indexing, is just optimize it. WP Optimize is a plugin they can use for that, and reduce the first byte time from 1 second down to maybe 200 milliseconds, for example, right? That's one way to do it. All right, something else. All of the meta descriptions on the WordPress side are duplicated. They have two meta description entries in the code. So what's happening is Google is not actually picking up the meta description. It's picking it for them, but not the one that they want picked. So for example, if you go to the Mahi Mahi page, the Basa Filet page is the one that they put on there. But Google, if you try to pre-render the page, says there's no meta description and there's no H1 on the page. So instant improvement if they can get rid of that duplicated meta description field, right? And that'll send a clear signal, and it'll pick up what they want deliberately put in for a click metric versus what Google's choosing for them. So again, the dual install thing is a little bit quirky, and to your point, it's a little confusing to have it pop up. It's not really providing much value because it can't be crawled at this point. Google bot doesn't open or click on things. It just reads what's on the page. So, and I got 2 minutes left. Sorry, hand it over to
That's it, yeah. And obviously,
21 seconds.
Like you mentioned, Franco, schema, obviously, if they've got recipes, there's a whole code base on recipe schema, which,
right.
I mean, from the blog post that you shared, Luke, and from the information that Franco's sharing there, it would be a perfect fit for this website. So, yeah, that's great, and at 100 miles an hour. So yeah, we've got some questions. I think most of them have been answered. I don't know if there's any.
We've got one from Christian on PPC versus kind of SEO spend on the current situation right now. Okay. Somebody wants to pitch in on that. All right, I'll go. So
yeah,
we haven't got long. So I would say what I've seen so far is that paid search is tricky right now because the budgets aren't necessarily there. But SEO is absolutely something that you should definitely go away and check out. So I'd say you're in a situation now where you're leaning more on SEO because, of course, you haven't got immediate cost. and look at once you've kind of got that formula sorted, then reinforce it with paid search. But maybe pass more of your paid search budget to things like getting people over to the final hop of conversion rather than kind of like the initial cold kind of click right now. But I am no paid search expert. This is just the things that I've seen that have worked for a couple of clients at the moment. And in kind of 60 seconds, if anyone else has got something else they want to throw down on that.
Yeah, remarketing is always part of that customer funnel. So yeah, it would make sense to pick up on the fact that you can remarket to users that maybe have visited a few months ago. But then again, it depends on what it is that you're selling now and if you're able to fulfill those orders. Because if you're not able to fulfill those orders, then
turn it off.
Yeah, turn it off and start looking at what you can take advantage of within your SEO strategy that is going to benefit you when hopefully not too far away the globe comes out of the issue that we're in at the moment.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
Liz, what are you seeing at the agency level from a PPC versus organic standpoint?
So what's been interesting is that our paid team, they of course, like many agency consultants, whether we're talking about paid search or otherwise, they're being asked to do a lot more with less. But what is fascinating is we've had some record ROAS on some accounts. So that's return on ad spend. Something like we had one where it was like every $1 you spent, you got $1,000+ back. Like,
wow.
Liz froze.
Frozen up.
Connecticut's gone.
That's it.
The agency's cut her off. She's sharing secrets, man.
That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously, and I think
that face.
Myself and Franco can see that there's a couple of clients where at this point in time, they've actually like thrived from the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to vary from niche to niche and market to market.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think
find
we're
your
up
new
on.
niche.
There we are.
All right.
He's come back.
Welcome back.
That's his time, right? Just as I was saying something nice. Good, the old yank. Franco, I'm blaming you for that.
Absolutely. I'll take
That's it.
All I was going to say is before everybody pulls the plug on their budgets, I get wanting to trim things back, but think really critically. Maybe this is where you're taking a look at the keywords you're going after from a paid search perspective. What is going to have the most impact right now? I would also say, remember, there's an assumption you're making that your buyers are no longer discretionary spending. A lot of people are spending a lot of time at home right now. And for example, one of our clients do home decor, and they have seen some great results, even though we've been asked to do more with less. So don't pull the plug entirely. Just be really mindful about how you're spending, and make sure if you're working with an agency partner, every dime that you're giving to them needs to be very strategic.
Yeah, one last thing that I'll say, because the question was asked is, everybody's wondering what industries are breakout and what industries are hurting. JP Morgan, just Google JP Morgan COVID research. They published it's a lot of data, but it actually broke out what industries are sort of climbing and the other ones that are descending. So great research there from an agency standpoint. But we're seeing the same thing. Organic SEO is increasing because people are trying to increase the natural value without spending more, even though there's still some spend on the SEO side. But we've actually seen an improvement within that metric and a little bit of a decline in PPC. So that's it.
Right then, and that's the top of the show. That's the end. So I'll let everyone say goodbye. And if anyone's got any more questions, they can hit Liz, Luke, Franco, or myself up on any of the social media sites that we're on to carry on the conversation. And thanks for letting us do this, Semrush.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Paul. Yep. Liz, Luke, good to see y'all.
Good to see you too.
You too, man.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye, everybody.